Hi, and welcome to this week's Three Leg Sport Wheels F1 podcast. It's Paul here with
Sean,
Chris,
Lee.
Spanish Grand Prix then. Thrill Fest.
Absolutely. Flag to flag, fucking thriller, wasn't it?
Yep, both those F2 races, amazing.
it
I'll tell you what.
threatened, didn't it? Like, it looked like at one point something might happen, and it didn't.
I'm noticing a lot of those at the minute. You know, a lot of promise.
do you know what though? I agree with somebody who I saw. I can't remember who it was now. I wish I'd taken their name down that I saw on Twitter. It's just a normal Formula One race. I think we've been spoiled in like recent times with like some amazing races. This was just a normal race from the last 20-25 years.
Yeah, you are right, but I don't know. It's just one of those things where, because we thought Red Bull were going to challenge, I think it made it worse. You know, it's when you had all that sort of excitement going into the race, and Toto Wolff saying that he expected the quicker cars to be behind, and then all of a sudden, like, Lewis Hamilton was just like, nobody could live with him.
No.
Is it me, or is he on a completely different level this season?
Yeah, well, he is every season, isn't he? Let's be honest. We were worrying, weren't we, sort of before the season? Well, not worrying as such, but like pondering as to whether, hang on a second, Lewis hasn't done any of the things that all these other drivers are getting involved in. Is he too busy with his head elsewhere and won't be able to get back into racing when it starts? But no, he's come straight back into racing and absolutely smashed it.
Yeah. It's scary, actually. And, any other situation, I think we see people like this like quite a lot. Barrichello comes to mind as well. But you get certain drivers that are made to look bad by their teammates. And realistically, in a different era in Formula One, Bottas would have been a world champion.
Oh, totally, yeah.
It's just because of who his teammate is at this present moment in time. He hasn't got a chance of winning a world championship, I don't think, unless Lewis loses one.
I agree with what Nico Rosberg was saying. Yes, you heard that right. I agree with what Nico Rosberg was saying when he says Valtteri needs to do what Nico did in 2016 and get your elbows out, get a bit more aggressive. Yeah, fine, send it up the inside when you haven't really got much of a chance. But I mean, he's not even getting close enough to do that, is he?
No. Not even beating Max Verstappen in an inferior car.
So Rosberg's idea is be more Rosberg.
Yeah.
Cool.
Basically, yeah. And Rosberg did manage to unsettle Lewis. Did you hear what he said on the the grid walk, the grid stand that him and Martin Brundle did on the Sky commentary
about cooking burgers outside his window?
Yep.
I missed that bit.
Yeah, it only dawned on me about 15 minutes about it. I thought, hang on a second, Lewis is vegan. That's why he's saying it. And because at first I thought, he must just mean have a party. And I thought, no, he's trying to mentally torture him.
Yep. Nico Rosberg said, well, the first thing I do if you're in a motorhome sleeping next to your teammate is get the grill out underneath his bedroom window and make sure you're cooking like 10 burgers a night.
There's some story, I can't remember which teammates it was, but in the 1990s about someone hiding the toilet roll after a bout of unsettled
Gerhard
stomach.
Berger.
Was it Gerhard Berger?
Yep, Gerhard Berger when he was teammates with Jean Alesi hid the toilet roll after the whole team went ill.
It feels like it's on a par with that level of inter-teammate shithousery.
Bastardry.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there was the one from last week that Bottas said as well. The last time that him and Lewis were in their living motorhomes next to each other in the paddock when they were staying at a circuit, and he got up one morning to find that Roscoe had left a massive turd on his doorstep.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So I think Bottas does want some kind of revenge.
What I would point out about Rosberg this weekend was if you take out the fact that he's properly looking like something from either American Psycho or Wolf of Wall Street, if you take that out, his input was actually brilliant.
Yeah, it was.
It was
very good.
I'd forgotten what it was like Because I mean, even Button's a bit different because he seems to do like the TV pundit thing, but he doesn't really critique the drivers a lot. Maybe it's because he just gets on with more of them than Rosberg does, so he doesn't want to be a bit of a twat.
I think Rosberg quite enjoys being a twat, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he does. Yeah, especially
look at the meme. There's no meme of Jenson Button, is there, saying it's somebody's career over? Yeah, every time somebody makes a mistake on Formula One, the Rosberg meme goes up with the fire.
But like even the down, the Ocon thing with Magnussen in practice 3. It's if you looked at that, everyone would have just instantly gone, well, Magnussen was an idiot, but Rosberg instantly knew it was Ocon not paying attention to what was going on.
Yeah, looking down at the settings or something, because there's no way you'd creep up behind that car like that. I mean, Magnussen tried to do the right thing, but yeah, it was just a freak sort of thing. And again, weirdly, I agree with Nico Rosberg in that it does kind of look like from Ocon's on board, like he drifted up behind him and thought, oh shit, he's still there. Like clearly wasn't looking at what was going on in front of him.
If you big up Rosberg anymore, Sean is going to have to bring out the newsreader voice and do an advert for beige shoes.
But he was wearing blue this weekend, very boldly.
Yeah, but he was wearing white pants.
Also a bold move, but with a beige belt. True to character.
Yeah, there is always some beige with Rosberg.
My tweet about Rosberg got unexpected traction that I wasn't prepared for.
Which tweet was
good?
This?
No, we probably don't want to repeat this on the podcast.
Get the Jacques ready.
You can just get away with it. I said that Rosberg's starting to look like an investor that's going to fuck your daughter. He's going to tell you he's doing it, and there's nothing you can do about it because you really need the deal.
And ladies and gentlemen, that was Jacques Villeneuve.
I'm terribly sorry. I've been trying to write stand-up, so being a bit like trying to be funny has become a hobby.
And one day you'll get good at it.
Now, mate. People in glass houses
shouldn't take baths with the curtains open
or wank.
And that review we got last week saying we shouldn't swear too much and I should stop being so aggressively northern, that's gone straight out the window.
Who reviewed us as that?
Yeah, somebody said we swear too much and it's not big and not clever, and I'm aggressively northern or
when
something like that.
When have we ever claimed to be big or clever?
Well, I
also,
think
there is an explicit tag next to our name, so get used to it.
I think he should swear more and stop being such a pussy.
We're going to lose the 2 stars he gave us. Shall we do a little bit of the news before we do the race? Because there's a few stories going around, and it means that Lee gets to talk about Fernando Alonso within the first 10 minutes.
I'll get my pants off.
Erectile dysfunction.
It's not that kind of podcast.
Erectile dysfunction is not an issue.
GetFernando.com.
Yeah, he's in the Indy 500 this weekend and qualified fairly well down the field in 26th, but Indy is a bit of a lottery anyway. I think when was it? The first time he was in 2017, we were talking to I can't remember his name, Adrian from IndyCar UK, who appears to have disappeared.
We did.
Who appears to have disappeared off Twitter, and it's basically 180 laps of jockeying for position, so you're in a good place for the last pit stop, and it's really a 20-lap sprint if you can get your car that far.
Yeah. Well, if you remember, Alonso got fairly close, didn't he, to the end of that year. I'm going to be honest. I watched that Indy 500 round at yours, Paul, but then since then, I've taken a fleeting interest in IndyCar. If it's on, IndyCar's on, I may as well watch it for a bit. And to be quite honest with you, I don't usually watch it to the end.
No, but it kind of converted me, and I think Sean to some extent as well. We do watch it now.
It's inoffensive, yeah. It's reasonable sort of half entertainment in the background.
I tried after Alonso's first bid. I tried to watch Indy afterwards, but I couldn't get into it. I am absolutely one of the reasons why IndyCar goes out of its way to get Fernando Alonso on the grid because he's a massive drawer, and there's lots of people like me that will watch it only because Fernando's in it.
Yeah, the Fernando effect, much like the Mansell effect in when he went to Indy in '93. But then, moving over a load of one sports fans to watch this driver in a one-off race is fantastic. But it's the last time he's going to get to do it, isn't it? Because Renault has said no more.
Yeah, apparently in the contract that he's got for the next 2 seasons, he's not allowed to do any other series.
I don't know if it's any other series at all, but it's definitely you cannot skip Monaco Grand Prix to go to Indy 500.
Let's not forget that the only reason Alonso started doing these things was because the McLaren was so bad, or the Honda McLaren was so bad, that it was to basically just stop him from throwing himself off a bridge.
I mean, it was, but now that he's got the 24-hour of Le Mans, he kind of has to get the Indy 500.
Yeah, but he can keep doing Indy until he's about 58, can't he?
I think, yeah. How old was Takuma Sato when he won it a few years ago? He would have been mid-40s.
Is he that old?
He's yeah, sure he is.
Am I going to have to back to the old days and I'll do the Googling?
Yeah, it was about 15 years ago, wasn't it? He was in Formula One, so that sounds about right.
Yeah, and it was only a couple of years ago he won Indy.
I also think the Renault will be competitive enough to keep him happy and keep his interest.
Yeah, Sato was 40 when he won it.
Yeah, so Alonso's you would say Alonso is better than Sato, wouldn't you? So he's got a few years.
Yeah, I'm just looking. Actually, Emerson Fittipaldi was. Let's have a look.
In 1995, the last win for Fittipaldi.
Yeah, when he was 49.
Yeah.
So yeah, Alonso has got a few years left. I mean, I'll be watching the race this Sunday night because we even changed our iRacing schedule for it. We're doing the Indy 250 on Saturday night.
Not the full 500.
I was tempted, but nobody else was up for it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I've literally just Googled the oldest Indy 500 winner, and it is Al Unser Senior. On May 24th, 1987, Al Unser Senior, behind the wheel of a year-old car he had to beg to drive, won his 4th Indy 500. He was 47. So 47 is the oldest race winner in the Indy 500. So Alonso's got, as you say, a few years if he does a couple of years at Renault and then decides to go back and have another go.
Yeah, what is he, 39 now?
Yeah, something like that.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, because I'm sure they said when he comes back to F1, he'll be 40.
Yeah.
So it's feasible. But yeah, if you're not a regular Indy viewer and you want to watch it, join in with us on Discord because I'll be on there and we'll be doing a live chat, and I'm sure there'll be quite a lot of our American listeners on there explaining what the hell's going on for the people that don't get it.
Yes, absolutely. Also, I just want to know, what has Lewis Hamilton got to do to be to get to the record of being the oldest man in Formula One? Because people just keep chopping and changing and making sure that he's not the oldest man in Formula One. Raikkonen just won't retire, and then even if Raikkonen retires at the end of this year, Alonso's back next year. Yeah. There's talk that Kubica might get a race seat again next year. So.
I think that's looking more and more likely, isn't it, Kubica?
Yeah, maybe.
Well, there's all the all-in money, and I think we can take it as read now that Kimi's on his last year.
He's not loving it, is he? Let's be honest.
Although I'm sure we can talk about it now. It was quite funny getting some classic Kimi radio during the race on Sunday. When he went to overtake Romain Grosjean, did everybody else catch that?
Oh, he really kicked off on him because Grosjean pulled the usual Grosjean move. Sorry, moves.
What the bleep is this idiot doing?
Oh, I do remember that
yes.
now.
Yeah, he kind of unloaded a little bit on him, but Grosjean once again had it had it coming. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about this during the course of the show, because there's a bit to talk about for the review. Just a couple of other sort of little news things. Toto is still being very vague on his future beyond this season.
He is, and a lot of news outlets have sort of jumped on this, like he's definitely going to leave, or he's considering his future, which means he's probably going to leave. If you actually read his words, it kind of makes sense. He says, look, we've been a successful partnership for so long, and I'm also a shareholder in the business. There's no reason not to continue, but there are other factors outside of the world of motorsport that contribute to whether or not I make the decision to stay.
I think this is what set everyone off, isn't it? The fact that he's alluded to Susie and what she's doing in Formula E. People are like, oh, he's worried about like that, and he's gonna go and travel with her instead, and there's a whole panic there. But we'll see.
I think they're a family, aren't they? If they need more family time, then surely that one of them might have to consider, possibly stepping away from what they do. And Susie's right at the beginning of her journey. Toto can't do any more than what he's already been doing. So if he feels like it's time to step away, fair enough. But he hasn't said that he's definitely leaving, which is what a lot of people seem to have taken it as.
I wonder whether the new boss of Mercedes has something to do with this as well, because there's been quite a lot of talk, hasn't there, that maybe he might not be on the same level as Toto.
I don't know, because I've seen interviews with the pair of them. Well, actually, no, there's probably even more doubt. I've seen interviews with the pair of them where they're being very chummy, very matey, and saying, yes, we both want the same things.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not what the rumours have been, is it?
No.
So.
No, I mean, you can want the same things in that you both want the best for the team, but I mean, that can mean two totally different directions, can't it? So, I didn't know who was in all of the Renault gear talking to Christian Horner at one point. I saw him, and then I saw him again just to the side of a shot when the camera was focused on something else. I was like, who is this fat man in the Renault gear who looks very important? Apparently, that's the new boss of Renault that took over from Carlos Ghosn.
Yes, Mr. Renault turned up at the race where both Renault cars failed to reach Q3.
But they could have just told him that was a really good thing.
But there was a Renault car running fourth at one point, all right, completely out of sync with pit stops, but it looked good.
Yeah, it did.
And Guan Yu Zhou had a good weekend.
Yeah, but we'll talk about it in the race review as well. But neither of them score points either.
No, that is
ideal. It's really weird, isn't it? This year the mid pack is so tight. It seems so circuit dependent.
Yeah, it's a yo-yo season, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Whoever gets the higher positions in the championship, mid pack at the end of the year, it's basically going to be the lottery of whose car suited the most tracks.
Can I scare you all just a little bit, just for 2 seconds?
I've heard you do an impression of the Grim Reaper, so you're good at scaring me.
Yeah, well,
it was the Salmon Moose.
It was definitely the Salmon Moose. But the next triple header, we've got a week off, obviously, now coming up. The next triple header of Belgium and then the 2 races in Italy. We're then halfway through the season.
Good God, where has this year gone? It doesn't seem like 5 decades since pre-season testing.
No. Well, that would be 9 races down, and at the moment we're looking at an 18 race calendar, possibly.
Ish, maybe, because chance for a segue. Turkey and Jerez are rumored to be about to be announced.
Yeah, we saw this, didn't we? Was it with Nürburgring and Imola when they were announced? It was. We thought it was going to be announced, and then nothing happened, and it was just like it's imminent, and then nothing happened, and then eventually they were announced. But yeah, it looks like a deal is being done to put Istanbul Park back on the calendar.
First time since 2011.
I think so. Yeah,
about right.
And which it was always a pretty good race, if I remember, at Turkey. It was
I
For a pretty good
I seem
circuit.
to agree. I seem to think it did always seem to put out a good race. It was kind of a shame to lose it.
And we all want to see these cars going through that turn 8 complex, right? Like hammering it round as fast as they possibly can.
Was that where the Red Bulls took each other out? In that
No,
section?
No.
that really long sweeping left-hander.
Just trying to picture it because it's been that long.
You would know it, I think, if you saw it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look it up on YouTube.
I can hear vehicles and
Cats.
You can hear Bruno.
You can hear Bruno is impersonating some kind of siren.
right, okay.
And of course, Jerez, the last race there was the 1997 finale.
Well, classic race as well. That was on. Was shown a few times on the Sky F1 channel.
It was shown.
during-
We had a watch party for it during lockdown.
Yeah. During lockdown, it was shown a few times. It was a great race. The championship decider between Michael Schumacher and
And some gravel.
yeah. And also perhaps Brundle's best piece of commentary from the 90s. Obviously, Brundle's most famous piece of commentary, I would probably say, is that Glock. But you've hit him in the wrong place. Was probably his best. Probably his best piece of commentary before that.
Oh yeah, it'll be good to see another race at Jerez because I mean we've seen it. It's been on the MotoGP calendar quite a lot. I had the first 2 races of this season as well for 2 wheels, and F2 had a one-off race there, completely independent of F1, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Which I believe was won by friend of the podcast George Russell.
Oh. Was it it coincided with like Japanese Grand Prix weekend, I think, didn't it? They just didn't do the flyaway.
Yeah, I think it was in between. It was the week before Japan or something.
But it's because they couldn't go to Japan there.
Yeah, I think it was to keep costs down. They had another round in Europe because obviously most of the F2 teams are based across Europe and have considerably lower budgets, and F2 wasn't owned by FOM at the time and didn't pay for all the transport. But obviously since FOM Liberty have bought F2 and really sort of set up what is now F3.
It was actually 3 years ago, and it was won by
Was it 3 years
Charles
ago?
Leclerc.
Was it Leclerc that
won
won?
the
Oh.
feature race.
Could have sworn it was 2 and George Russell won it. My
Goodness me.
memory's not what it used to be.
So Charles Leclerc's the only one who's recently raced there. Of course, Kimi Raikkonen will have just missed out on racing in Jerez, with it being in 1997. And Raikkonen, 2001, I think he started.
Sounds about right.
Alex Albon was in F2 that year as well, so he will have raced there.
Okay. So Raikkonen has raced to Imola. Is stuff moving around? I can hear this.
Dizzy has just jumped off the podcast table, so it could have been her.
It sounds like somebody dragging furniture around. Is anyone else getting that?
No.
Is it just me?
No,
No.
must be you.
Okay.
Check to see what Jinx is doing.
I will.
Latifi as well. Latifi was in F2 then. Of course he was, because he was in F2 for about 7 years.
Yeah, true. He was in there nearly as long as Johnny Cicotto.
Johnny Cicotto was in that race.
No, Johnny Cicotto was in the wall. Probably.
So Kimi Raikkonen's raced at Imola. Max Verstappen raced at Imola in Formula 3. But this is Portimao. Obviously, nobody's raced there in Formula 1, but they did a Formula 2 race like years ago.
They have had a test at Portimao in the last 5 years, I want to say.
Yeah, but I think it's a bit more than that. I think it was like 10 years ago or something.
I don't think it's that recent.
But then you've got Lewis Hamilton, who will have raced at Istanbul. Perez, probably Istanbul.
Possible, yes.
2011, yeah, I would have thought so, yeah.
Vettel and Ricciardo. And
Well,
Raikkonen,
Vettel
I
very
think.
famously had a big crash there, didn't he?
Exactly, yeah. And Grosjean. Grosjean probably raced there as well.
And probably had a very big crash there at some point of the
Seems
weekend.
likely.
Yeah. So some of the current crop will have raced at Istanbul before. But yeah, very few of them race at Jerez. apart from the lower formulas.
And the FIA have put a moratorium on teams hiring these new circuits for filming days or testing old cars.
Right. Okay.
So you can't go get an advantage and get some track knowledge.
Like Ferrari did before they announced Mugello.
Yes.
Ferrari getting help?
Never
gonna
never
happen.
happen.
To be fair, Ferrari's shakedown was before the beginning of the season, and obviously Mugello was announced a couple of weeks after that. So they probably had an idea, but nothing was confirmed.
Well, surely they've had an idea because they own it. So if FOM said to them, "Can we hire your circuit?" It's going to take more than 2 weeks of negotiations.
Yeah, of course, yeah, but that's what I mean. They would have had an idea, but nothing would have been, no contract signed or anything. Standard
Ferrari way of doing business. What do we get out of it? Then we'll talk. Actually, talking of Ferrari. Now, you think, Chris, that the ban on qualifying modes or party modes is down to the Ferrari engine from last year?
Well, no, I think Lee. Was it Lee that said that? It's a knock on from. It's a knock on from what happened.
Yeah, it feels like they're just trying to close loopholes off because, like, from what I gather from the quali modes, it's harder for the FIA to govern. It's how much fuel's going through the car, all that sort of stuff. So just to put a blanket ban on these quali modes essentially just ties a loophole up that people can use because you are free. I mean, if you can do it and you've got the fuel economy for it, you are free to use these modes in the race. It's not like there was a rule that you can just use them for quali. And apparently Mercedes were able to run these modes more often in the race than the other teams can. So I don't necessarily think it's just something that's going to hurt Mercedes, or I don't think it's something to hurt Mercedes. I just think it's tying up loose ends in the rules after the Ferrari engine gate.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Mercedes have got far and away the fastest engine.
Well, it's thought as well that they didn't use it this weekend in qualifying just to see actually how big an impact it would have, and obviously didn't really affect them.
That's interesting.
God, what's that thing going to be like if they ever do turn it up to 9?
Do you know what? I really do worry about next year because if you look at this year, and I don't think we've had a couple of good races, yeah? But as far as not knowing what's going on, essentially, and not like it being a clear Lewis Hamilton championship year, the excitement's really come from the back-to-back races, the fact that we didn't think we were going to get any racing, the fact that the world's been a fucking shit tip, so it's just nice to have something back. If next year,
now for every time you swear, I've got to be aggressively northern, right? That's done.
But if next year, when you think that all the data that's been gathered this year, I feel like the cars are, you know, as you go through a season, the cars tend to filter themselves out into like their performance categories of where everybody is.
I was just going to say the standard quote for this stage of the season, and let's say after 6 races, not this time of the year, but the standard quote for this stage of the season is, "We're learning more about the car every week."
Yeah. So by the time we get to testing next year, which realistically should almost be fucking halved or something like that, because they've already had so much running in these cars, they could cut costs easily by just not having winter testing. I just can't see what difference is going to happen between the cars, between now and then. I think we could end up with even more processional races than we're used to.
Yeah, I think the only chance of any change we've got next year, and don't forget testing starts in 6 months' time if the calendar's going to plan.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the only sign of any change that we're going to see in 2021 is how well McLaren take to the Mercedes engine.
Yeah, I agree.
That's also that's it. I mean, yeah, all right. There's the token system for upgrades over the winter, and teams can do little bits to upgrade the chassis, which am I right in thinking it's something McLaren can't do because they're just having to use all their tokens to make the change to put the new power unit in?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that does suck up most of the tokens that they've got to do that.
So we'll see very, very little change in the pecking order. I'm just trying to work out what that cat's doing.
You don't need winter testing if the cars are going to be the same. I would much rather they just went straight into Australia and just see what happens.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Maybe something like a 2-day shakedown for any new upgrades.
Yeah,
and then
if like teams maybe like McLaren. McLaren are the only team, aren't they, swapping over their engine?
As far as things stand, yeah, but I mean, we'd normally have heard about that well in advance for any of the other teams.
I think technically, I think Racing Point don't have the contract in place. With
Neither do
Mercedes.
Mercedes.
Well, that's true. But yeah, I think the paperwork has not been signed. But I think we'd have probably heard by now if there were any changes.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a Mercedes-powered Aston Martin, isn't it? Let's be honest.
The road cars are.
True.
Although I think you'll need testing in some cases because there's going to be drivers in new cars and new teams. So
yeah, of course.
There's got to be something to.
Yeah, but it doesn't need to be full-on winter testing like we've had in the past, where it's like, did they chop it down from 3 to 2 tests? Like, was it this year or last year? It probably doesn't just need like one shakedown test. Probably, it probably would have to be somewhere like Spain where the weather's a bit favourable in February, but it doesn't need to be this big, long, drawn out 4 days of testing 1 week, 4 days of testing in another week.
Or just do it the week before the race. Do it in Australia.
Yeah,
do it a couple of days
before Australia. Yeah.
Have a Thursday session.
Yeah, why not?
Well, you probably need more than a day, but just as you were saying before, just like a couple of days, but no more than that needed, really. I wouldn't have thought.
But yeah, I think they have been going overboard. What was it? Testing was 2 4-day sessions last year, and it was reduced to 2 3-day sessions this year because of the extra race that was fitted into the calendar. That was part of the compromise.
It doesn't seem like much of a compromise to me. 2 3-day sessions is okay if you're going to have new cars. So going into the new rules of 2022, by all means have 2 sessions of 3 days long, of course. But there's no need when you're using the same cars to have such a long winter testing program.
Oh no, definitely not. I'd probably if they are going to do it at Spain again because Barcelona has a contract for the winter test, then just have 1 3-day session.
Yeah.
You'll have all your upgrades in place, either part of the chassis or ready to bolt on. You've got time for your new drivers to get used to it. If you've got a new test driver, it gives them some track time.
A tyre is the same going into next year.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's absolutely no need, is there, to unnecessarily test what you already know.
Yeah, because I mean it's going to be the 2019 spec tyres for the 3rd year.
Yeah,
because they couldn't agree on the new 2020 spec, and then there isn't the opportunity to do as much tyre testing this year, if any, as there have been in previous years for the 2021 spec. So they're just keeping everything the same. So they are going to know practically everything about every aspect of the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just scary where Mercedes will be compared to the other teams. I can't see anything else but an easy championship this year and next year for Lewis Hamilton.
Oh no!
We'll see what happens over the rest of this year, but it is looking at the moment, isn't it, as though almost everybody who isn't Mercedes has kind of given up on developing a 2021 car, and it's just focusing purely on the big changes for 2022.
Yeah, and even coming down to next year, let's face it, we can have this whole, I'm sure Bottas will have his chance to go win a championship or all you want, but realistically, let's be honest about it. Mercedes want Hamilton to beat Schumacher's record. It's while Mercedes are taking all the records as far as the team goes, Lewis Hamilton's doing his job, knocking off the individual records as well. I don't think they want a Bottas championship to get in the way of that.
No, I can't imagine they do. Maybe that's everything's getting set up for all this, and that's when Lewis calls it a day.
Maybe, who knows? Maybe he's got that one championship more than Michael Schumacher at the end of next year. And yes, he probably could continue, but there are other things he wants to do. So
I think the new rules will be too enticing for a racing driver to let go.
I am inclined to agree with you on that. I think he'd want to at least give it one season, and if Mercedes aren't the shit anymore, or if he moves team and ends up at the wrong team, maybe then he'd step away, but I think he'd want to at least see what's happening.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think considering, I don't just think, Lewis thinks he's the best driver on the grid. I think if he's being honest with himself, he probably believes he's the best driver of all time. And if the cars are getting bunched up together to where they're racing more, I don't think his ego would allow him to not beat the field in a more even situation.
If he backs himself in that way, then the idea of closer racing should actually play into his hands.
We've all gone quiet.
We have.
Yes.
Stunned silence.
Shall we do a race review?
That's exactly
do
what
it.
I was about to say.
Right. So, Spanish Grand Prix, different time of the year to normal. Considerably warmer in August than it is in the usual Spanish date of April.
Yeah, April or May, isn't it? Usually, sort of just mid-May before Monaco.
Yeah.
Depending on where they can drop Azerbaijan into the calendar, or
Yeah.
the traditional start of the European season, or as it's becoming the new normal, the traditional end of the second triple header. Oh God!
Yeah.
Do you know what? There's been that many bloody races lately. I think I'm starting to get F1 fatigue by the end of the third one. Don't about anybody else. The drivers must be knackered, but I'm worn out. Not as action-packed as we were expecting, and
Spain can be like that sometimes, though, can't it? It's not always the most thrilling venue.
Yeah, I mean, one reason the test there is it shows up what the cars can do, because it's a mixed circuit. There's fast bits, there's slow bits, there's technical bits, there's plant your foot bits. And
it's a decent sort of technical track, I suppose, in that there's lots of fast left-handers, lots of fast right-handers, braking zones, slow corners. It's got almost everything, which is, as you say, why they chose it as a testing track.
And that chicane that it looks like everybody has to fight the way through at the end.
Yeah, it's. People call for that to be taken away. I don't know. I quite like it now. It's been there for must be about 10 years now. But
I don't see the problem with it.
Nah, just leave it.
If you take that chicane out, it's not all of a sudden going to become an overtaking opportunity. I don't get what you gain from it. If anything, that helps promote overtaking on the straight, because you can if you get a good X out of the chicane on somebody.
Yeah, the old Spanish Grand Prix track used to just go straight down. There was no chicane there. It went round a bit further, and straight down to the last turn. I mean, that's going back to, I don't know, it's probably even more than 10 years ago, probably about 15 years ago now, then, since they put that chicane in.
Sounds like people that love dem DRS overtakes to me.
Yeah, take the chicane out and move the DRS detection zone a bit further. No.
Yeah, let's make it a slam dunk so you can overtake like 7 cars with DRS are going.
Yeah, but if you've got 6 cars in front of you, 5 of them are going to have DRS, so you'll just whoever's in front of those 6 will find themselves losing 7 places and then regaining them one by one on the next lap. But yeah, so starting from the back, Williams with a bit of a lack of race pace again.
Yeah, was same as last week, really, isn't it? You know, it's a case of the single lap pace is okay. They seem to be able to do pretty well in qualifying. How much of that is down to the Mercedes engine thing that we were just talking about, I'm not quite sure. But when it comes to race pace, the car just drops right off and both drivers do find themselves dropping to the back of the field.
Yeah, I mean, Latifi 18th and Russell 17th, and it's...
I don't really remember either of them particularly being on screen or really doing anything either. I think they were just, they were also in the race.
Yeah.
Yeah, finished ahead of an Alpha. I mean, technically
finished ahead of a Haas.
Was it a Haas? Oh, sorry, it was a Haas. It was a Haas.
Yeah,
yes.
Was it Grosjean finished it the last
Grosjean.
of the finishers?
Yes.
And the only one who obviously was Charles Leclerc didn't finish, but we'll talk about Ferrari later on. But yeah, don't know what happened to Grosjean either. But we'll talk about Haas in a bit. But
I was going to say we did see one thing happen to him, but going back to Williams, I don't know if there's much to say.
No, not really.
No,
they just dropped back. They finished, I think, was it 2 laps down?
George Russell was 1 lap down. Latifi was 2.
Okay, which means Grosjean would have been 2 laps down.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah, and that moves us on to Haas next. Grosjean slagged off by Kimi. Great save from him towards the end.
Oh, when he nearly put it in a wall.
Yeah.
All by himself.
Well, this is the thing. Yeah, exactly. Everyone's like, wow, what a save from Grosjean. No,
don't
he did
lose
that
it
himself. Yeah.
Just don't lose it in the first place, and then you don't have to go making those saves.
Yeah.
Things like Max Verstappen in Brazil, where he just accidentally dips a curb onto where it's really wet. That's a save because that's kind of to the conditions, and there's other factors going on there. And Romain Grosjean was towards the latter stages of a race where he'd done many laps.
Yeah, he'd been around that corner 40 some times.
And nobody threw any water on the track.
Bernie wasn't there with his sprinklers, which people kept asking for on Twitter on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, please don't do that.
And yeah, Grosjean was just. Do you think he's given up as well?
I wish he would.
He was bitching quite a lot because apparently the car looked very good on Friday. He seemed to think that it was happening
he was
for
like
him then.
5th, wasn't he? He was 5th in first practice.
And then they did
5th.
some work on the car between Friday and Saturday, and all of a sudden it was shit.
Yes, they put him in it.
I don't think that's the work he was talking about.
Yeah.
I do like. I don't think he should be there. And I think this is probably going to be his last season. But I do feel sorry for both of those drivers as well, because if like Grosjean has a crashy issue, well, he's always had, but that car looks like a piece of shit as well. Joe, they're really not sorting it out, and I think this will be the team's last year. Or next year will be the team's last year. I don't see them signing a new Concord agreement.
American fans are losing patience with Haas as well. Not being competitive. What's this? 5 years in now?
Yeah,
This is 5, I think, isn't it?
5th season.
5th season and 4th season with this lineup.
Yeah, so I think that I can see why the patience is starting to wear thin. But they've got to change something, and I've got to be honest with you. Magnussen and Grosjean as a driver lineup, apparently, as we've heard, they don't get on very well. Yes, all right. The feedback that Grosjean provides might be really invaluable and great. Switch it up, put a driver in there who might be able to extract the best out of the car. because I don't think either of those drivers is doing that either. The car's not great, but the drivers aren't getting the best out of it either.
Yeah, I mean, next season when we see the team being Perez and Hulkenberg, they might actually start doing better things.
That would be a lively lineup for them. I think that'd actually get them going somewhere.
5th place.
That's better than they're getting at the minute.
Well, if they got Perez and Hulkenberg in the team, they will be running at 5th in every race, whether they finish there or not.
Yeah, passing Vettel in the Aston Martin in 11th, because that appears to be his new position this season.
Well, don't forget, Hulkenberg has said publicly that he's interested in joining Alfa Romeo next year. So his name's been thrown at Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, but Lee, as a conspiracy theorist, is he saying that to throw people off the scent and is really in negotiations with Haas?
And no, I think he's desperate to get a seat. I think he'll sign any contract anywhere.
That's the thing. You say these things to try and build hype behind yourself and hope that somebody else believes it and actually gives you said contract.
He's so shit. He's talking to Alpha. Quick, we should probably get in there and talk to him before he signs a contract with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely hyping himself for the next move. But I have seen down to Haas's pace them being rechristened as Hearse.
Ouch.
Yeah. That's a bit
they
too.
are shit though.
At the moment, yeah, they are. I mean, they've been competitive at the beginning of some seasons because they tend to hit the ground running, don't they? And then a development curve falls off a bit. This year, they've joined the back of the queue almost instantly. Sometimes they've been behind the Williamses and the Alphas. Sometimes they've been slightly ahead. But they are definitely one of the teams at the back of the pack, as I say, alongside Alfa Romeo and Williams.
Yeah. And talking of Alfa Rum Milk Float, they're next.
Yeah, again, totally underwhelming race for them.
Kimi got into Q2.
He did, which was pretty good. Very good, in fact, given that it's the first time this season that Raikkonen's managed to get into Q2.
And the first time for 2 races he wasn't plumb last in qualifying.
Yeah, but then look who was. Giovinazzi was plumb last, wasn't he? He qualified in last place. So, okay, he moved up a little bit throughout the race, but Giovinazzi's just... He's not having the season that he should be having, is he? Even in a car that's, again, not great, he's nowhere near Kimi Raikkonen, who's probably going to call it a day at the end of this year.
Yeah, it's just not. It's another one where it's just not gelling for him. I mean, Giovinazzi last season he might be in with a chance of getting in the points towards the back half of the season.
Yeah, he improved as the year went on, and he needed to continue that improvement into this year, but he just hasn't, and it's a shame because he looked really promising, but it much like the Spanish Grand Prix, he looked like a lot of promise, and then nothing has come of it.
Yeah, and I mean the only sort of positive point, Kimi managed to get up into 14th, and didn't have any mechanical issues. It's a bit participation awardy.
Big whoop. But yeah, for Giovinazzi, I think one of the things that obviously has helped him keep his seat for this year is that there was no one. He's in the Ferrari Academy seat in that team, and there was no one ready to replace him. But that probably won't be the case next year.
Yeah, it's worth pointing out as well. Kimi did his fastest lap was a 1:21.888. And Giovinazzi's fastest lap was actually a few hundredths quicker. But those fastest lap times were up there with Verstappen and Sainz's times. The fastest laps of the Racing Points were slower than that. Fastest points of the Ferraris and the other Red Bull were slower than that. The AlphaTauris and the other McLaren was slower than that as well.
So it is a fast car, it's just inconsistent.
It appears to be, but yeah, I mean...
where are they having trouble? Is it high-speed corners, low-speed corners? Obviously, they've got the aero looks good in a straight line.
You see, we're hearing less of that, aren't we, as well? We're hearing less of, where teams are having problems because they're all constantly on the move and nobody's really, the paddock isn't full of people who are getting, Chinese whispers or rumours getting spread. So we're not hearing a lot of where the teams are in terms of, a couple of years ago when Sorokin and Stroll were in the Williams, it was like, we're aero stalling and we don't know what's going wrong. we're not getting any of that sort of specific problems from the teams. We just, as I say, these three cars at the back, the Haas, the Williams, and the Alfa Romeo, are just slow.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, Lee, go on.
I was just going to say it's for Haas and Williams more so than Alpha. I don't see how they're going to get out of that. Yeah, I don't. I think that especially Williams, because Williams we thought were going to be on the march forward, and they've improved. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not convinced that. I don't think they're any faster. I just think they've made a car which is easier to drive slowly, and that's allowing George Russell to put that car where it shouldn't be.
See, I think for me, of the three, Williams is the one that I would say, if any of them have a little bit of hope, they're the only one that doesn't have the shitty power unit. They've got a rookie who presumably is getting a bit more experience and a bit more comfortable with every race, and they did do some hiring.
I mean, a lot of the new Williams hires are on the technical and development side, which is unfortunate because there's not a great amount of scope for development until the 2022 car, and it could be that Williams are just going to be satisfied with the lot until what the new hires have put together for the new regulations.
Yeah.
Alpha, though, I mean, Sauber have always had minimal budgets.
Not anymore.
They've always been able to, they've had. I mean, I'm talking before the absolute desperation times of the Manisha Kaltenborn era.
Yeah.
But they've had the occasional bad season, the bounce back, and they've made a really good, solid car. They should be able to do that again now. All right, under the guise of Alpha, but effectively they are still Sauber. They are still the Hinwil team.
They are Sauber, but they're having Alfa Romeo are pumping money into them, as well as bloody PKF Orlen from Robert Kubica as well. They're not exactly bereft of funds. It's just or technical expertise, because they do have, they borrow quite a lot of parts from that Ferrari as well. But
but that might be the issue.
Actually, now you mention it, yeah, hang on, that could be it. They've got fantastic brake ducts, though. All designed in-house.
Exactly, absolutely. Swiss brake ducts.
The only reason I think things might be slightly more rosy for even Haas as well, I suppose, in this situation, is Ferrari have got to sort their issues out. And so for a knock-on, it's not necessarily the money that's in Sauber or Haas which is going to make the difference. It's going to be the lorries of money that Ferrari are willing to stick into the furnace to sort their problems out. Will have a knock-on effect on those teams.
Yeah, I mean, making an engine that works, for starters.
It did work.
Legally works.
It worked fine. Just
works without cheating.
Yeah, the problem was it was like fucking a nuclear fission reactor in the back, wasn't it? That was the issue. The thing didn't even use petrol.
Yeah, ran the 100 meters in 8 seconds, but for God's sake, don't make it pee in a cup afterwards.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it was about as fucking legal as Brock Lesnar.
I was gonna go for Johnny Manziel, but same thing. So I mean, yeah, that could be a thing that helps Haas and Alfa out. And Williams are doing things the Williams way and improving things themselves internally, because it's what they've always done.
I think Williams is doing the clever thing of being exceptionally quiet. There was a lot of like cringy interviews with Williams last year where we were constantly being told how they were actually doing really well. We were wrong. It wasn't all awful. They were actually doing really well, and it was fine. I think silence is their strength at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see half as much of Claire Williams on TV as you did last season.
No.
If there was anything ever going on in the paddock, even if it wasn't related to her, she was grabbing the microphones and putting them into her own face.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this year she's been much more in the background, as has everyone from the team.
I'm going to get some stick for this because there's certain things you're not allowed to say anymore.
You're going to get some stick for this because you're opening your mouth.
I think she's the worst team boss in my memory. In my memory of watching Formula One, I think she's the worst team boss.
I would argue that Paul's formerly mentioned Manisha Kaltenborn, who signed 4 drivers for 2 seats.
Yes, the infamous Guido van der Gaard incident.
Yeah, but let's be fair, that car wasn't too bad.
Because she stole Guido van der Gaard's money.
Yeah, I mean,
All
business-wise,
anyway.
that was terrible. On track,
It was a terrible move, but I would still prefer if I was that team and those investors, I'd have still preferred that move and the team not to slowly crumble around me while I'm going, it's fine, everything's okay, just don't worry about it. My name's Williams. This will naturally sort itself out.
All right, quick listeners poll. If you can think, let us know who you think has been the worst team boss. Don't all tweet in and say Claire Williams, but any other suggestions for who's been the worst team boss?
I reckon Eric Boulier will get a couple of shouts.
Oh, yeah, there's a chance.
Eric Boulier was fantastic at disaster management.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he'd usually cause the disaster.
No,
I
not
don't
at
think
all.
so. No. I think he was really good.
Yeah, when Lotus had no money and were basically the whole team was disintegrating before Renault came and saved them, Eric Boulier was the calm man, like sort of the calm face doing all the interviews, and everybody genuinely believed him, despite the fact he was full of shit, and he did the same job at McLaren. McLaren were in an awful place when he joined McLaren, and he spent the entire time convincing all the McLaren fans that things aren't great, but we've got a really good working relationship with everybody around the team, so it's just a case of making sure that we work really hard. It was rubbish, absolute tosh.
Eric Boulier spent 3 years in a McLaren shirt answering a different question to what had been put to him when he answered something at all and didn't just go off on another complete tangent.
That was exactly what he was hired for.
And stop just short of saying, we keep pushing.
I mean, we've no idea how good Cyril Abitaboul is or not, because you've no idea what the feck he's on about.
This is true.
Yeah. But I think Eric Boulier, even though he will probably get a few mentions for being the worst team boss, actually not a terrible team boss, because his job was not to manage the team as such. It was deflect the shit that hit the fan away from the team.
He was a fireman. That's what it was. He was a fireman. He wasn't a team boss.
And a pastry chef.
Let's face it, right? There was a time.
No, he wasn't a pastry chef. He kept the pastry chefs in business.
There was a time.
Pastry enthusiast.
He was head for Lotus, wasn't he? He joined the team when it was Lotus.
I think he might have joined it when it was still Renault. And sort of been through that era.
And when Kimi decided, sorry lads, if I don't get paid, no more work's getting done, and essentially pulled his tools off the job, Cyril Abitaboul made all that sound fine. He said, he's just got to sub back, can he? Be fine.
You mean Eric Boulier?
All right, I've got a worse.
Sorry, that's what I meant.
I've got a worse one for you. Craig Pollock, head of boss at BAR when they first started, fired by the team he set up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Claire Williams would have been fired if she wasn't if she wasn't a Williams, to be fair.
It was so bad they replaced him with Dave Richards.
That's not ideal. That's not ideal at all.
Wasn't Adrian Reynard part of that team as well? He was the American part of British American Racing, wasn't he?
Yeah, they made the chassis.
Yeah, but he wasn't team boss or anything. He was just there quite often.
Yeah.
The only issue,
I think he was like technical director.
The only thing I'd come at with that is I would say that he brought a shit team into Formula One. He didn't destroy a team that was second in the championship.
Well, he didn't bring a shit team into Formula One. He bought a shit team, and they carried on being just as shit 'cause he bought Tyrrell.
That's what I mean. But he didn't take a team that was second in the world championship to like 4 seconds off the pace.
Hang on a second. Can we just do a little bit of history?
He hired Ricardo Rossit.
Let's just do a little bit of history here.
Yep.
BAR became Honda, became Braun, became Mercedes.
Yes.
So, yes, there's a few buyouts going on there, and it's totally not the same team that it was way back when. But Williams has been Williams since the 70s.
Yeah.
They are way down on where they expect to be. I mean, they were winning races in the 80s. They were winning races they won championships. Didn't Nelson Piquet win a championship in a Williams? One of his championships.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was like 87, I want to say. And then obviously they were still winning races when McLaren were dominating for the next few years. And then Williams took over again with the Mansell-Prost era. And then obviously Michael Schumacher had his couple of years. But then you had Hill, Villeneuve. Yeah, Williams were on the cusp, even going right up to where Juan Pablo Montoya. What years were they? Sort of 2003, 2004. Montoya at Williams.
Yeah,
Montoya was second in the championship that year.
Should have won the world championship.
Yeah.
Williams won championships in 80 constructors and drivers, 81 constructors. Bless you. 82 drivers, 86 constructors, 87 won both.
Yeah,
and then look, hybrid era. So sorry, just go quickly. Hybrid era. Williams did almost without quite having the technical helping that Racing Point have got right now, but almost the same thing where they were Mercedes' favorite partner. They had the Mercedes engine when it was just so far ahead of everything else. But absolutely no exit strategy for what to do when the other team started catching up. And that's my issue. Williams are where they are because of bad management and arrogance.
Yep, I wouldn't disagree with that, to be fair.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is a race review, not a destroy Williams review.
So who's after Alfa Romeo?
We'll save that for next pre-season. It's Renault next.
Okay.
Well,
we already spoke about Renault, how the big boss turned up and then they didn't score any points.
They were thoroughly anonymous, weren't they? Like, I don't think there was anything wrong. It just didn't happen for them.
Yeah, I think that's about it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, coming off the back of a couple of good results at Silverstone.
Mm-hmm. I think this goes back to what we were saying about some tracks are suiting some cars and some tracks are not suiting others. This was a track that did not suit Renault.
No, it didn't.
I mean, in pre-season testing, we were unsure about Renault because we couldn't actually gauge what the real pace was, and it looks like what pace that they had or didn't have in testing was actually their real race pace here in race conditions.
Yeah.
Also,
sorry, go on.
Well, because Ocon in 13th and Danny Rick in 11th. This is last season Renault.
Yeah. We already mentioned Ocon's really silly mistake in practice as well. So, I think after Hülkenberg's performance in the Racing Point the last the two Silverstone races, I think Renault probably have some buyer's remorse.
Yeah, I'm coming round to the idea that getting Ocon back in was the wrong move.
It's starting to look that way.
Hate to agree with Lee.
It's fine. I'm not going to gloat, but it's he's not doing the job, is he? And the thing is, he seems to be at a level, and it doesn't seem to be getting better either. Yeah, he's not. I know like he had the silly accidents or silly mistake and stuff like that, but it's not like he's doing awful things in the race. He just doesn't seem to quite have the race pace.
Well, he's not. From what I can tell, and I might be wrong statistically speaking, but he doesn't seem to be able to hang on to Ricardo, which Hulkenberg was doing better than this last year, and they hoofed him out for Ocon, and Ocon doesn't appear to be quite as complete a driver, should we say, as Nico Hulkenberg.
One thing I will say to his credit, I think for stability-wise within that team, he is a better teammate for Alonso.
As long as he doesn't be as good a teammate to Alonso as he was to Perez.
I don't think he'll get the opportunity.
No, I don't think he will either.
I think Alonso, I think Alonso is a much better driver than Daniel Ricciardo, and I think Alonso will maul him next year.
Really? You've never said that you think anything like that before.
Yeah, well, shock horror, I believe Fernando Alonso is the best man to ever put hands on a steering wheel. But I just it's gonna be right. You remember the pit in Mortal Kombat?
No.
Yeah. It with had all the spikes in the bottom, and then you had the big dude with the 4 arms.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like the boss. Yeah. Well, that's Alonso, and it would be like putting him in the pit against a kitten. That's what's going to happen.
That's a good analogy.
What if the monster liked cats and picked it up and stroked it and nurtured it?
No, the best thing that can happen to Ocon, the best thing that's going to happen to Ocon is Alonso's going to wear him and then go and fuck something bigger with him.
Oh, talking of which, there is crap racing going on in Ocon tonight. Twig's making his debut in the production rods.
Lee, can you smell fire from where you sat?
No, I can't.
It was actually, according to Facebook, it was 10 years ago today I nearly took my thumb off at Ocon Raceway.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Yes,
there's a fact.
Yes, I saw my
Is that when you
check-ins.
turned the car upside down?
No, that was a different incident.
Didn't you try and get out of the car, and that's when you
Yes,
nearly took
I
your thumb off? Yeah.
I fell getting out of the car and put my thumb onto a jagged bit of metal.
And the future Mrs. Dan had to drive you to hospital.
She did, yes.
In your car, which she got very confused with.
Yes, I would not endorse putting hand onto bit of jagged metal. It was not comfortable.
No, it won't be. No, absolutely not.
Shall we do AlphaTauri next?
Yeah, they were okay again, weren't they? Gasly's getting it together in terms of qualifying.
He's really looking a lot more settled in the car. It's that car is definitely playing up to his strengths.
It is. It does appear to be a good car for Pierre Gasly to drive. Kvyat though didn't have a terrible race by any stretch of the imagination. He did okay. Finished 12th.
Yeah, ended up with a 5-second penalty. Did he actually?
He didn't lose position. No, Ocon was well off the back of him.
Ah, right. But yeah, I mean, Kvyat at one point having a decent battle with Vettel.
Yeah, his race pace has looked pretty solid. He just needs to qualify a little bit better, and he'll be like solid points finisher.
How much poo was in Sebastian Vettel's pants when he saw that Danny Kvyat was all in his mirrors?
Torpedo.
Oh crap! I'm in a slow car and there's that man behind me again.
I think Vettel's got more to worry about at the minute.
What, like getting a working radio or something?
I don't think he wants to work in radio.
Yeah, if it's not working, it's his choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, his radio works. He just refuses to answer the stupid things that Ferrari say to him on the radio.
We're going to have to jump slightly here, but I think it's
And the next team anyway.
No. Just because we're still in AlphaTauri, Tauri, whatever it is. Albon, who we'll talk about later on. Is it not a bit unfortunate for him if both Daniel Kvyat and Gasly appear to be sorting themselves out at the minute?
Technically, they did both finish behind him.
In a worse car.
Yeah, I mean, he should have been further up the road,
and they were closer to him than he was to Verstappen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. Although I'm very confused by Red Bull's. We'll talk about Red Bull when we get to them actually. But
Yeah.
I was confused by their strategy with Albon. But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
In terms of Gasly and Kvyat, though, they're doing okay. They're doing all right, and I don't know if either of them will ever get another go in the big boy team again. But I don't know what other options the big boy team would have, to be perfectly honest with you. So, so long as the clothing brand company carry on doing the job that they're doing, I think they can be fairly satisfied with how this year started for them.
Yeah, they are looking good. I mean, they're looking like one of the midfield teams, which sometimes, there's been a fair few times over recent years they definitely haven't. They've looked anything but.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about them after a factory team.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then next, the big factory team. What can be said about Ferrari that hasn't already been said?
I thought Leclerc's retirement was a bit strange. Is Leclerc getting fined for driving around without any seatbelts on, by the way?
Haven't seen anything about that, but yeah, you would think.
Yeah, he had the engine failure, which led to the gearbox seizing, which led to the spin. So he undid his seatbelts and then drove back to the pits.
He did 2 laps, didn't he, with no seatbelts on?
2 laps.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like he just drove around and pitted straight away. He did 2 laps with no seatbelts on. Well, so seatbelt not that it wasn't on. It wasn't that his harness wasn't clipped in, but the
all it would have done in the event of an accident is snap both his arms.
But yeah, it's the DNF was a strange one because he was the only one to not finish the race. The power unit just shut down on him.
Yeah.
Electrical failure, I believe.
I think
it wasn't
they
his
blamed
fault.
electrical, yeah.
It wasn't his fault at all. Meanwhile, Sebastian Vettel, I feel he would have had a better race had Ferrari been a little bit more proactive on the radio with him, because I think Vettel was absolutely spot on with his radio message back to them. I said, "Oh, do you think we can go to the end on these tyres?" And Vettel's response was, "I literally asked you this question like 3 laps ago."
I've got the transcript, and it wasn't those exact words. It was, "Oh, for fuck's sake, I asked you this before. Now I've been pushing for 3 laps."
Yeah, exactly.
I think Vettel had a good race. I think that's probably it's probably his best race of the year, considering where the car is. See,
Yay, 7th.
Yeah, I know. But the thing is, I mean, that car looked bad all weekend. And I think that might be one of the big problems he's having at the minute is he's having a dose of bad form and he's in a bad car.
Yeah, but also his team aren't helping because Mattia Binotto turned around and said, "This is the consequence of Sebastian, the disappointment of him leaving the team at the end of the season." It's like, well, hang on a second. You didn't offer him a new contract.
Well, isn't that like kind of a way of saying, so what's going on, Mr. Binotto? So, all right, what we're doing is we're fucking him on the way out the door.
Totally, yeah.
And Binotto's actually come out and said he's surprised by any suggestion of there being tension between Vettel and the team.
No, I agree with him, actually. I don't think there is tension between him and the team. I think they've got to that point in a damaged relationship where neither of them give a fuck about each other, so they don't even argue anymore. There's that little bother between them. They don't argue. They don't even look at each other. They just like wake up in the morning and go, "Hiya."
I don't know. I mean, yeah, whatever. It does carry a lot of tension sometimes.
Yeah, maybe.
They wake up in the morning. These are the people who wake up in the morning and don't even say good morning. Just like, do you want to use the bathroom first?
Yeah, and now and again, one of them will say, "Well, what's up with you?" No, nothing's up with me. I've just got nothing to say to you.
I mean, how long before we get a radio message where it's just fine?
I think there've been a few that are pretty close to that already.
Binotto also spinned the radio messages as misunderstandings and said it was a strength of Ferrari to discuss its plans openly.
It's until they have a couple of drinks at the works party, and all of a sudden Ferrari goes to Sebastian like, and who the fuck is Racing Point anyway?
And I never liked your mother. I mean, in honor of Ferrari's strategy, I dug out the Charlie Jefferson designed Ferrari headless chicken badge.
I think they did all right with strategy. It was just
Sebastian.
By accident.
no. Yeah, it was okay. Like Vettel's strategy was all right, but had they, those 3 laps where Vettel thought he was going to be stopping, because he asked a question and got no response, so he thought, right, okay, well I'll push because they're going to bring me in for a stop, and then they didn't bring him in for a stop. That's what kind of ruined his tyres towards the end of the race. He fell back a place or 2. I think he probably could have finished 5th or 6th given Perez's penalty. Difficult to say, of course, but I mean, it would have been nice to see a better position for Vettel. I think 7th, even though that's an improvement, I don't think that tells the whole story of Vettel's race. I think he deserved better than that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I was it Carlos that finished behind him?
Ahead
in front of him. Sorry. It's you've got to think if he hadn't have had those 3 laps pushing where he was trying to conserve the tyres, he might have kept Carlos behind him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
that's
the
kind of what I'm saying. Yeah.
The 3 laps pushing probably took off 6 average laps for him.
So, yeah, I read a rumor on Twitter, so it probably means it's complete bullshit. But according to, I can't remember what website it was now, there was a contract offered to him from Racing Point this weekend, and he will sign it.
That's at least the 3rd weekend in a row that's been definitely happening, according to Twitter.
And I've just made up a rumour that Manisha Kaltenborn has just been signed by Racing Point as driver recruiter.
But this has been the first time I've read one of these rumours where it said he's been offered the contract and will sign it at the next Grand Prix.
According to Blue Tick Guy from the Italian, from Sky Italia last weekend, he had signed the contract and it was being announced last weekend. So I'm calling, generic Twitter rumour.
Do you know what? It would be the ultimate fuck you from Vettel for him to announce that he was signing for Racing Point at Mugello.
Ooh, that would be good. That would be a strong move.
1000th Grand Prix at their home circuit, and he just gives the biggest finger ever.
Yeah, that'd be pretty good. I still think it might be the Sergio COVID situation where maybe he has already signed the contract, didn't want to do it while he was sick, didn't want to do it when they had a replacement in the car for Perez, and didn't want to do it on his return race.
You disappeared.
You had a little glitch there.
You disappeared for a second then.
I still got him, but yeah, maybe you lost it. I thought Paul and Sean had gone for a second.
I think it was our internet at this end, because I was just getting a Facebook message at the time, so that probably muted everything.
Did you get what I was saying about?
I think we got the gist.
Yeah, because with Sergio coming back this weekend, it would have been again a bit untasteful after he's been ill to then turn around and say, "And we're replacing you."
Yeah, I think that's possibly a little bit much. Obviously, if Vettel does do that, then Perez is going to have to hang on if he is going to Haas, because you can't really, after Ferrari have already been overshadowed once, you can't then say, well, we're sending you a replacement to your baby team.
I still think Perez might end up in a Red Bull.
I'd be surprised if they hired outside of their bubble.
I think this is it. I think it makes a lot of sense in theory, but whether or not they'd actually do it, I'm not convinced.
They're probably sniffing around Antonio Felix da Costa again.
Oh Christ!
I don't think they can take a gamble when they've got somebody. We'll talk about Red Bull in a bit, won't we? Anyway.
Yeah. In a couple of teams' time, it's actually McLaren next. Carlos in 6th and Lando in 10th.
Yeah. Yeah, they seem to be mixing it up a bit at the moment, don't they, the McLaren guys, sort of in terms of like race pace. Sainz appears to have just a little bit of edge when it comes to the race over Lando.
Well, Lando admitted that he had a bad start, and that's what held him back, because he got held up in traffic in the early stages when he could push and wasn't able to. And again, it's the last part of Lando that needs work.
Well, he's been better at his starts this year than he was last year. But yeah, I agreed. He needs to get his elbows out a bit more at the start.
I think they weren't McLaren wasn't particularly on it this weekend, and Carlos dragged a better result around his home track out.
Yeah, that's a fair statement to make as well. Maybe Lando just sort of put the car pretty much where it was supposed to be, sort of, roughly around about where Gasly and Albon are at the moment, with Ricciardo behind. But yeah, maybe Sainz's performance, given that he did pass Vettel in the closing laps, it was on extremely worn tyres. Sixth place was a strong home race performance for Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, I mean, I would have expected to see more out of McLaren this time, because I think it was testing this year when we saw what the car looked like it had got the potential to do, and then the Spanish Grand Prix is usually proving what the car can do and more, because there's been some development time in between. It was, I mean, like I said, Lando's starts are just not there yet. I mean, I tend to forget it's only his second season, and he's still definitely.
He's had some good starts this year, though.
Oh yeah, they've improved from last year, and he's still a work in progress. And his last season in F2 was the car that wouldn't start.
Mm.
They had to have rolling starts for about half a dozen races until they sorted the clutch problem out.
Yeah,
that didn't they?
Yeah, didn't they end up reverting back to the 2017 clutch in the end, because that one worked and the new one didn't?
They had to do something to it, didn't they? I can't remember exactly what the solution was, but there were all kinds of issues.
But yeah, for McLaren, I mean, we talk about how adrift teams have been. This gives hope to sort of Williams and Alfa Romeo and Haas as well, that given a couple of seasons of some really good management, the right people, the right drivers, you can put your car into the points.
Yeah, and I'm excited for him for next season because of the Danny Rick factor, because he is somebody who will put his car in places that by rights it shouldn't be in when he's got the opportunity.
Yeah.
And
he should have a good car as well. McLaren should be a bit of a weapon next year with a different engine in it.
Yeah, it just remains to see how well it's going to take to putting a Mercedes engine in a Renault-shaped hull.
I wouldn't be surprised if McLaren found themselves behind Red Bull and solidly the third best team in Formula One.
Well, that space is definitely up for grabs, because obviously with the current car, it's not going to be Ferrari.
Nope.
Yeah, and Racing Point potentially slip back a bit if they have to fanny about with their brake duct for next year.
By fanny about, do you mean build their own shit?
Possibly. Subject to appeal.
Who's appealing that at the moment?
Right, so Ferrari, Renault, and McLaren are all appealing the actual punishment.
No, McLaren have dropped out.
Have McLaren dropped theirs because they've remembered Mercedes are doing their engine next year.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, Williams dropped out, didn't they? Because
for that exact reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ferrari and Renault are definitely appealing the strength of the punishment, whereas leniency, whereas Racing Point are appealing the punishment in itself.
Yeah, don't forget as well. It's not that McLaren and Williams did a U-turn. They didn't drop out or anything. It was to do with they posted a notice of intention to appeal, which doesn't necessarily mean you're going to appeal. Mm-hmm. It's just that those two teams didn't appeal, whereas Ferrari and Renault have.
Yeah, and I don't think having more teams do an appeal gives it any more credit, so they've obviously thought, oh well, there's 2 factory teams, let them crack on.
Exactly. We got slightly more to lose here, lads. Let's just back out the argument a bit.
I although I don't agree with the situation, I think it isn't in the spirit of Formula One, is it? But if they have essentially just exploited a rule that that was a bit sort of open, I don't see why taking advantage of something should fuck them for another year as well. That's that's the issue I've got with it.
Well, Renault lodged a protest again this week, saying that that part has been ruled illegal, so why is it still on the car?
But they've been told they can continue using it, haven't they?
Mm-hmm.
Until
during the appeals process, yeah. But yeah, if Renault keep lodging these protests at every race, and the appeal, Racing Point's appeal is unsuccessful, then potentially they could end up losing more points again because they continued to run an illegal part.
Got you. Okay. Yeah, so they need to be looking at having new parts just in case.
I think they need to win that appeal, or they could have a real issue.
Yeah, I read somewhere that Williams had taken FIA advice on whether to appeal the penalty.
How much is it
not.
going to cost us? Nah, you're all right, mate.
Yeah, that could be it. But I was trying to find the story, and I'm looking at about 5 or 6 different places and I've lost it. But one thing that I have found is it's Concord Agreement early deadline day tomorrow.
Oh yes, that should be fun.
That's Tuesday, so for everyone that's listening to this later than Tuesday, it's
happened.
It's happened. Oh, we've broken time again.
Future news
Well,
from the
was
past.
last Wednesday, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the 12th, and then mainly Mercedes are playing a bit of brinksmanship and saying we're not happy about the distribution of all the money. So F1 pulled the date back to the 18th. Now, that's not the absolute cut-off date, which I think is the 31st. Teams will get a bonus if they sign by tomorrow.
Fuck it now. A bribe? I think that's what you call that.
Like when, no.
No, bonus is you declare for tax.
It's like when you pay your rates on
Sorry,
time.
Sean, you just broke me. I'm fucking dead.
Well, it's like when you pay your rates on time, isn't it? You get a discount. That's basically what it is. It's not that you get a chunk of money for signing up on time.
Like our 30p every 3 months for paying the electricity by direct debit.
Worth it.
So yes, I did notice that tomorrow. So that's probably going to be a story that drags on well into next week, or either that or Tuesday news. Yeah, Mercedes don't sign and pull out, start their own series.
Yeah, Mercedes finally turn into what they've always wanted to be: McLaren in the late 90s.
Right, we have got Racing Point next, actually. Perez crossed the line 4th, finished 5th, and Stroll crossed the line 5th, finished 4th.
So how much did Daddy Stroll pay these stewards to make sure that Perez got a penalty?
And how much was Perez told to slow down and to get Lance within 5 seconds of him so he got the place?
Maybe.
To be honest with you, I think he was on very worn tyres, wasn't he? Because he only stopped once. He only stopped once. Perez. He did the tyre management thing.
But Perez doesn't wear his tyres out.
Yeah, but they're still going to be a bit knackered if you only one stop towards the end of the race. So.
This is why I'm still sad that Perez missed the first Silverstone when everyone's tyres were bollocks, because he could have actually done something ridiculous.
Yeah. I still think Stroll had a good race. This was another good Stroll race. He was more on the pace of Perez than I expected him to be.
Having taken an extra pit stop as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Stroll did well.
Yeah, I mean, Perez's penalty was a bit of a strange one, because he said there was no way of him to move out of the way to be lapped when he was getting the blue flags. And to be honest, if you look at the part of the track where he was getting them, I don't really think there was.
It didn't look like Hamilton had any real issue.
But apparently, this is all part of the FIA's new clampdown on blue flags.
But you get 3 blue flags, don't you? So
Yeah.
it's not just in that one place. He's had them in 2 other sectors as well.
Well,
But it's mini sectors. It's not the full track sectors. It's not the 3 sectors of the circuit.
no.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
3. It's
I-
3. Is it a digital
Marshall
board
sectors.
and a Marshall thing? So he could. I think there would have been like 3 in quite quick succession along the straight.
The
But,
top
I mean, if
bottom
he's
of it
getting the
is-
blue flags and he's slowing down to move out of the way, is it his fault if they gave him the blue light a bit too early, or because he can't stop to let Hamilton past, but he slowed down enough to let him past.
I don't
He
know.
Didn't get in
Look,
his way.
they gave 2 people penalties. Like Kvyat got a penalty, he got a penalty for blue flag stuff. Everybody back from the racing points. No, everyone back from Bottas was lapped, and they didn't get penalties. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's a fair point as well.
I mean, Michael Massey said they are now clamping down harder on blue flags.
I have it in my head as well. A blue flag penalty comes with a good scutch of penalty points. I think it might be 3.
I think it might be. Let me just have a look.
Do you know what I can never understand? I can never understand the attitude of people that think there shouldn't be flags and people should just have to overtake people they're lapping. That's a confusingly common standpoint of people.
Yeah,
And
then you're not racing that person. You're literally a lap behind them.
And that's
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
get shit like Ocon going into the back of Verstappen in Brazil when he's decided, like, oh, we'll race.
yeah, no, it's
But
I've
that
always
was a
found it weird.
slightly. Yeah, I was gonna say that was a what's it called? A unique incident in the back marker had just come out of the pits the lap before and was actually on softer tyres going faster, which was a bit.
But I think
A bit
without blue
strange.
flags, that would be more commonplace.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean it's and again I'm referring to IndyCar, but that's how they run things on road courses there. They don't have blue flags, and you don't have to move out of the way.
Yeah, but it just seems bad. I mean, how many races must get fucked up because like people are coming up to lap traffic, and whoever's in the lead might get through, and then the next guy's held up for 2 laps or something like that.
I think
It's
as
not-
well you don't
not
get
what I
held up
watch.
for as long in IndyCar because they have refueling and because you have more pit stops and because you tend to have quite a few safety cars. You don't get the lap traffic quite as much. If someone is genuinely a lap down, it's probably because you are quite a bit faster than them.
Yeah, yeah.
Or
I mean,
or they're Max
realistically-
Chilton.
Or
Oh, I
you are
suppose
faster
as
than.
well. I'd imagine with it being a more of a spec series too, that the lapping isn't as consistent. It's not like Formula One where you have a team like Mercedes, which is so far ahead of the rest of the field.
yeah, they also have what you call push to pass as well, which is kind of a similar deal to KERS, but rather than you charge it over a lap, you get a set amount of it throughout the whole race.
I want to say 3 minutes.
It's a quantity of seconds, and yeah, you can, if you suddenly come up to a back marker, you can just give yourself a little boost and off you go.
But I think in the case of Formula One, definitely where just by dint of how the cars are and how the circuits are tilted, blue flags are necessary because, like you said, you're not racing the guy that's trying to lap you. So
No.
let one past, hold up the second one. It's I mean, what was it? Crate of champagne on its way to Sauber for letting Schumacher past.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Another classic Brundle. I think that was actually the '97 Jerez Grand Prix as well.
Ah.
May have been.
Because I know I've seen that. I've seen that recently during a race, and I'm pretty sure it was the same race.
Possibly. I'll have to look into that, but yeah. So, but Racing Point had a decent race. 4th and 5th is a very good result for them.
And again, this comes back to testing because we saw how good they were in Spain pre-season. And they've carried it on.
They have. Well, definitely carried it on in Spain.
Again, I'm thinking, jury's still out for me on Stroll until I see what he does in Belgium.
He's looking forward to Belgium, he said, post-race. He thinks it'll be a track that suits their car better.
Well, it's the closest he's got to a home race this season.
True.
Because a larger proportion of the grid has got Belgian passports than we initially thought.
Well, three
Has
of
Lance
them.
Stroll got a Belgian passport?
He's got a Belgian mum.
Lance Stroll?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Lando Norris and Max Verstappen.
I was going to say Lando Norris does.
So,
But Max Verstappen's actually Belgian.
Yes.
and Nico
I know
Rosberg's
you hate
actually...
to hear it.
We should
You hate to
do
hear it,
some
but-
more anthem mixes, potentially. Given the sheer quantity of half Belgians floating around.
Yeah, possibly. And don't forget that Romain Grosjean's actually Swiss.
Yes.
Yeah, that is true. Right, one thing that's definitely Austrian, though, is Red Bull. Oh, I like
Yes.
Based in Milton Keynes.
that. Binary.
Yes.
But
Yeah, I know
the
I said
Albon,
we talked.
the Albon strategy.
Well, he was sacrificed for Verstappen, wasn't he? They thought they obviously knew they couldn't outpace Mercedes on the same strategy, so had to think, oh, can we one stop him going onto the hards? After a couple of laps, very obvious, nope. Albon didn't have the pace, so
Yeah, but I mean, I think as you're just saying there, I think they guinea pigged Albon a little bit because yeah, okay, he was stuck in a little bit of traffic, but to put him on the hard tyres.
Did you not hear his pit interview?
no, I don't think so.
Because he was asked why they went to put him on the hards, and he said there was no choice because I couldn't keep the tyres alive. My tyres were already gone. I said all the way through the race, I couldn't keep the tyres alive.
Yeah, but that was mainly because he was stuck in that train, wasn't it? I think everybody had an early pit stop, but his was the first.
He was the first to stop.
Yeah.
No, but that's what I mean. But the reason he stopped was because his tyres had already gone from under him. I think it was handy. Don't get me wrong. I think it was handy to put him on the hard tyre to see if it worked for if it would work for Max. But let's be perfectly honest here. If it had worked, it would have worked for Albon as well.
That's why they tried it with
Yeah.
Albon.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But I'm just saying, if it had have worked, it would have worked, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. The top and bottom is he's too far behind Max Verstappen now, and
Yes.
I don't think it's just that one stop on the hard tyres which has done it.
No, I think it is, and I think I actually think they are number 3-ing him.
No, I just don't think he's quick enough to be be a real number 2. He should. Do you not think, right? Red Bull would have preferred him to be up there. I mean, to use if they're going to do anything with him, use him strategically, like make him force Bottas into pitting early or something like that.
Well, he was up there with Bottas into turn 1, wasn't he? He was up there with Bottas and then Stroll, and I think Perez got past as well. So, and he
But
was...
look where he went in the race.
Yeah, and after his first pit stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, comes
But
out in traffic and then gets stuck.
No,
Yeah,
but he was in traffic anyway, so they had to pit him to try and get him some clear air, and then that doesn't work for him. He keeps barbecuing his tires through the thing. I don't dislike Albon. That's what I need to put forward here. But I think the reason people are giving him such an easy ride and going, oh well, Red Bull should do more to help him, is because he's nice.
No, not at all. If he's, but I mean, if Albon doesn't deserve a drive, then you're also looking at probably Grosjean should go, Giovinazzi, Magnussen,
Oh no, yeah,
Ocon.
Hey,
I think we've covered this already.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with all those statements.
Absolutely. But I mean, that's half the field gone.
But I know the difference is, I think there's a difference between Grosjean being in Haas and Albon being in the second best car in Formula One, or the third best car, depending on what the day is.
Yeah, I think he would have had a better race if they put him on mediums at the first stop rather than hards.
I think he'd have had a better race. I still think he'd have been lapped by Max Verstappen.
I think on
Possibly.
mediums he'd have cleared the traffic. He came out behind quicker and then would have been able to manage them better than he had for the first stint.
Yeah, and he probably would have finished behind the Racing Points, maybe, or maybe even might have gotten ahead of them. Who knows?
Maybe.
But we'll never know because he was put on hards, and that was a really odd thing to me. I thought it was strange at the time. I was like, hards? What are you doing?
It was very obvious in practice, wasn't it, that just was not a tyre?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if that's the case, then maybe Red Bull weren't doing it. Maybe Red Bull weren't doing it with even the thought of putting Max on those tires. Maybe they were doing it because they thought, like Albon said himself, he was going through the tires, so the hards were the only option they had to put him on.
Yeah, but then they had to stop him again anyway. They would have had to done because of how early they stopped him in the first place.
Oh yeah, it didn't work. None of it worked. But what the problem is, he got that strategy because of where he was in the first place. And I don't.
He had an all right start.
Well, no, because he was behind the Racing Points, wasn't he? And he couldn't he couldn't clear the Racing Points. And he was in a better car.
Well, I don't know that it was a better car.
I think Max would argue that.
Max is a much better driver than either of the drivers in the Racing Points.
This is my problem, and this is why I don't think he'll be in the car next year, is because I don't think he's a bad driver. I think he's got a lot of pressure on him at the minute because we know what Red Bull's like as far as pressure goes for drivers. The problem is I struggle to wonder from where he is now how he can get himself to the position that Red Bull need him to be, because they need a Bottas.
But the problem is, any driver that is capable of winning a race that goes to Red Bull knows instantly, I'm going to get Barrichello'd.
I think you're probably right. Yeah.
You're saying they need a Bottas, but you're not going to, it's going to be hard to get one because you walk into a team knowing instantly that you're the number 2 driver.
But this has happened in Formula One for years. It's not new.
Oh, yeah.
Coulthard to Hakkinen, Massa and Barrichello to Schumacher. It's not a new thing.
But then you've got all the pressure as well that comes with the Red Bull drive.
Cool. Yeah, there is pressure that comes with the Red Bull drive, but we've seen from Mark Webber that if you do your job well enough, and even if you are filling that number 2 role, Red Bull aren't a sacky team when you're doing your job. At the minute,
who do they get to do their job?
Oh, no, I don't know. This is why I think Perez is probably the best option for Red Bull for a number 2 driver, because I think he would be. Because what you really want is you don't want to have to number 2 somebody. It was only on very few circumstances that Webber was actually fully number 2'd for Vettel, and it was because Vettel was quicker than him most of the time. The same with Barrichello and Schumacher. It was only a certain number of races where Barrichello was actually properly number 2'd because most of the time Schumacher was down the road from him. I reckon Perez would be there with Bottas. If you've got Max Verstappen chasing Hamilton down, Perez and Bottas would be together, and that's what Red Bull need.
I actually think Perez in a Red Bull potentially could hassle Bottas. I don't think he'd be with him. I think he'd probably be quite comfortably up the road.
Yeah, I think you're right. But
I still don't think it'll happen.
No, you're probably right in it won't happen. But I don't see Albon in that car next year. And I can't. The issue I've got is I think it's a risk for them to bring either Kvyat or Gasly back into the team, especially because they're gonna want to keep the same team into 2022, and 2022 Red Bull want to be fighting for championships.
I think Albon will be in the car at the start of next season. Now, what happens after 4 or 5 races or Hungary, if we have a normal season, I have no idea. But I think they'll stick with him.
He's got 1 point more than Lando Norris.
Who has? Sorry.
Albon. I believe. I haven't got it in front of me, but I'm sure I read that yesterday.
1 point more than Lando Norris, and yet Lando, who's had a podium this year and having a let me
Fastest
have a
lap.
look at the standings.
Yeah, that
But
I would
my-
say they must be about level.
Yeah, correct. He's on 1 point more. Yeah.
But my issue being that Albon's teammate is the closest challenger we have for the World Championship. That's got more points than a Mercedes driver.
Yeah, 6 points ahead of Bottas. Verstappen is at the moment, but Albon's on 40, and fourth in the championship, despite not scoring any points in Spain, is Charles Leclerc on 45.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, Leclerc has picked up the points.
Yeah. Is it two podiums?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a second and a third. He's done really, really well. Lance Stroll is fifth, tied with Alex Albon, and Lando Norris is seventh on 39. And then it's Perez, who's missed 2 races. So it's going to be really, really tight in all of the.
And we're back to what we predicted earlier. Back to what we predicted earlier. A completely batshit midfield.
Yeah, the top three. Charles Leclerc's on 45 points. Valtteri Bottas has got double that in third. Verstappen 6 points ahead, and then Hamilton is 37 points ahead of Verstappen.
I think that's my issue with the Albon situation. I in that car, he shouldn't be part of the midfield conversation.
Well, if he has a good race in Belgium, he's probably fourth in the championship.
I want to
Yeah,
say
but
he
look
did
at-
quite well in Belgium last year. Was it his first race for Red Bull?
Yeah,
Belgium
it was, and I
last
think he
year?
brought it home sixth.
But it turns
After seeing what happened to one of his friends.
Is it a bit of a tyre killer, Belgium? It is, isn't it?
Some years it is, some years it isn't.
Yeah, that might be quite
Yeah,
interesting.
he's not had tyre problems particularly up until now, so I don't know whether it was maybe just a freak of Barcelona.
See, what I find irritating is the fact that I think some of the overtakes he's been doing has been really good, and some of the recovery drives he's done has been really good.
It's that
But
they're
you s-
necessary.
Yeah, it's because they're necessary, and it's then when you look at the table, you go, oh well, that's all right. He was like sixth or something like that, and Verstappen was third. That's not too bad. And then when you look at it, you go, but he was 70 seconds behind his teammate. The gap's too big. Like the gap's huge.
The gaps like that is the gap at the end of the race is
It's
something to
more than a
consider.
stint. That's my problem. It's more than a stint on hard tyres.
But the problem is with Red Bull, where are they going to get a Bottas from? The reason I can't see Perez going there is his money man, whose name I can never bloody remember.
Carlos Slim.
Thank you. I don't think he'll want his money going into the Red Bull
That's the
organisation.
thing, that's not what they need in a driver, is it? They don't need a pay driver, they've got a Dietrich Mateschitz.
Yeah. And I don't think he'll want his branding associated with Red Bull.
The thing I'd argue with there is if Red Bull want him and they want to just start paying him like a Formula One driver, then he doesn't need his money man. He then does it on talent.
It'll be good to see where Perez can get without, as he always says, the sponsors deciding.
But I mean, you're probably right in the fact it probably won't happen, and maybe even I think a Hülkenberg wouldn't be a bad idea for a go, because the way I'd look at it is, if I was going in Red Bull, I think, well, I am probably going to get number 2 to Verstappen, but if things don't go right, as in the car doesn't end up being like the next Mercedes come 2022, Verstappen's going to jump ship, and then Red Bull will be my team. That's what anyone going to that team should be thinking right now, because let's face it, if Verstappen hadn't won that race last year, probably be driving a Mercedes now.
I'm not sure, but we'll talk about Mercedes anyway.
Mm-hmm.
A newly lightweight Valtteri Bottas finished the race 3 kilos lighter than he started it, and said it was down to the black overalls.
Which he was called a racist for saying, which I thought was fucking ridiculous.
I've no idea who called him that, but black clothing absorbs heat more.
Black anything
Yes,
it
absorbs
does.
heat more. That's how black works.
Yeah, black things get hotter than white things during races and in general sunlight. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, hence track temperature is always ridiculously high because tarmac
Is black.
But once again, we see the Lewis Hamilton show.
Exceptional.
Did he put a foot wrong at any point?
The only glitch I remember, and it wasn't on him, was that he had a shitty pit stop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 4.3.
Yeah, I think
like
a
that.
wheel gun slipped, and
Yeah,
they took a couple of goes to get the wheel on. But yeah, aside from
But
that,
they had enough of a gap, and also I think that's is that when they double stacked the Mercedes anyway.
yeah,
yeah.
So the threat from Bottas behind was gone, and he had the gap to Verstappen then anyway, even with a little bit of a sticky wheel gun. But again, that wasn't on him, and I mean, like he said himself after the race, I was just so in the zone, I didn't even know that was the last lap. Just like just
It was what was it? Oh, we done. I want to keep going.
basically he was ready to keep going, which is. That's to me, like when we've seen drivers in days gone by, absolutely, the physical wits end, Senna, Mansell, Hakkinen to a certain extent as well, like, oh God, like, absolutely physically exhausted at the end of a race. And then Hamilton's like, oh, I could have gone again. Not even sweating on like one of the hottest days in Spain.
At least he started taking a water bottle in the car as well, because he went through that phase last year and previously, where he didn't have a water bottle, and he was panting by about 30 laps in.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah,
because he was trying to keep the weight down in the car so much. But you just cannot fault anything that he did on Sunday at all. We know the car's the best on the grid, and it is being driven by the best driver on the grid.
156 podiums. That's one of Schumacher's many dominoes that have stood for a long time, now toppled over.
I mean, that is a scary number.
Before COVID and everything, we were saying in the sort of like closed season podcasts of last year that this should be the year that Hamilton breaks a lot of Schumacher's records. He should break the amount of wins. He should break the amount of podiums. Those have both gone. He can equal the number of championships. So it's scary. We're going to see what happens as the year plays out. But that's win number 88, is it?
Yes. So he's doubled his race number in wins. I mean, 256 starts, and there's only been 100 times he hasn't finished on the podium. He is 1.5 times more likely to be in the top 3 than he is to be outside it.
that's a bit
Crazy,
nuts.
isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, you consider the years that he had in that dog of a McLaren as well.
Yeah.
And then his first year at Mercedes when he was hardly on the podium at all.
Yeah. It's weird. Yeah,
He was finishing like 6th and 7th in that first year at Mercedes.
I'm just having a look. The first Mercedes was 2013.
And he won. I think he won one race that year.
Yeah, one win and 4 thirds.
Yeah. So it was. Do you know what I mean? That's a whole season there where he's had a bad season and he's only been on the podium 5 times.
You can't wrap your head around it.
No, he's done it in fewer races than Michael Schumacher as well. So hats off to Lewis Hamilton. He's proven his worth. And we are actually
Lilac hats as it was this weekend. That was the new Mercedes one, wasn't it?
Yeah. But even if the rest of these races for the next triple header, even if we have races similar to the one we've just had in Spain, we're watching history unfolding here, because I'm pretty certain this season will be the one that Hamilton equals, if not beats, the win records. He's only got 3 to go to equal it.
I mean, I thought during the Schumacher era with Ferrari, like the only way I could get through that was thinking what you're saying now, where you thought, well, I'm witnessing history. This is a once in a generation thing that happens in a sport, and it's happened twice.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember people at the time saying this is insane. Michael Schumacher's got the same amount of wins as Senna and Prost put together. This will never be beaten, or if it is, it'll take many, many years to be beaten. No, just wait a few years for the young kid to turn up from Britain.
Wait till the guy that replaces him.
This is true. I mean, the Mercedes project was, one of the original Mercedes project drivers was Michael Schumacher. Mercedes re-entered Formula One in 2010 with Schumacher and Rosberg as teammates, and obviously Hamilton replaced Schumacher.
Although according to Ross Brawn, if Hamilton hadn't signed and stayed with McLaren, it would have been Hulk.
Double Nico. That's a fun team lineup, isn't it?
Yeah, so did you see Mercedes' response to that on somebody on Twitter? It's just like, the world wasn't ready for 6-time world champion Nico Hulkenberg.
Yeah, one-time podium standard would just be good for him at this point.
Yeah, it would have been, yeah.
Are we going to have to change it to Nico Hulkenberg's World of Disappointment?
No, because
had.
Hulkenberg's he never comes across as disappointed, whereas Nick Heidfeld always does.
Nico Hulkenberg isn't disappointed because he is a Le Mans winner.
Correct.
Is he?
Yeah.
Wow.
Says so on his Twitter and everything.
Oh, right. Oh, it must be true then. But, yeah, flawless by Hamilton. Bottas did his job
start.
a little dodgy off the start, and I think Red Bull managed to out-strategize with what they did with Max.
I think that Valtteri sort of psyched himself out of winning that race, because he said before the race that the start's the best chance to get past Lewis. If I can get past Lewis on the first lap, then I've got a good chance of managing this race. And he totally cocked up the start. From the front view, where the camera's at the end of the straight, I thought Bottas got a really good start, and everybody else was kind of towing him. But from the aerial view, Bottas didn't get that good a start at all, and everybody just sort of swamped him as it went into turn one. He was kind of lucky not to lose the back end going out of turn one into turn two. But yeah, never really recovered and never really looked like he was going to pass Verstappen.
No, which I found strange. I thought he was going to come at Verstappen at one point.
I did. I thought he was going to find the pace, but he just didn't. And then when you look at the pace of the other Mercedes, as we were just saying then, Hamilton, he was like comfortable 10 seconds out in front. He could have cruised around like that all day long.
I think he was more than prepared to. Right, rock stars and wankers.
Ooh. Wanker for the rain that did not come. That did not fall on the plane in Spain.
Until, what was it, about 2 hours after the race finished, according to Adam
Yeah.
Cooper's Twitter.
No to that.
It's always the way, innit?
Mm-hmm.
Always the way.
Yeah, Wet Daleks, which is my new EDM act.
Nice.
Just trying to think of any others in particular. I mean, I suppose you got to say Charles Leclerc for doing 2 laps with his seatbelts undone.
Wanker, yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's not rockstar behaviour.
No. Rockstar. Lewis Hamilton, rockstar.
Yeah.
We don't like to see a driver just disappearing into the distance, and we want to see fighting for the lead. But when somebody drives that flawlessly, you can't really, you can't say anything bad against them really. Rockstar, I will say Pierre Gasly's starting to be a bit of a rockstar.
Yeah.
He's gluing it back together, isn't he? Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll, I think, can be put in the rockstar category.
Go Vettel for a rockstar, yeah.
Sort of semi-rockstar for Grosjean for the save, but wanker for being in the position where he had to make the save.
No, doesn't even warrant a mention.
It just proves he did learn something off Thibaut Courtois when they were doing all the e-races.
Yeah.
No.
I thought that was quite a good one. Right, so we don't have a race to preview this weekend. God, that makes a change.
does.
So we don't need to do any predictions because it's just as well, because I haven't asked for anyone's yet. The prediction... Sorry, Chris.
I was about to say, so should we shunt?
I was just about to say, the predictions are open for the Belgian Grand Prix in a week on Sunday. If you feel like entering now, you can always change them beforehand. But apart from that, time to shunt.
It is. I've got one. It's already here. I'm just trying to work out how to pronounce the second name, actually.
Excellent. Oh, get the liquidizer ready.
I think it's Geiger, Rob Geiger.
How are you spelling that?
Geiger.
Geiger.
Is it Geiger as in...
As in HR
Geiger counter.
HR Geiger or Geiger counter.
Right, okay. Yeah, it's him, anyway. Are we ready?
I reckon so.
I was born
Yay.
Yes.
Yes.
in 1975.
Okay.
Right, okay, so 45 this year.
Mm-hmm.
I started driving a go-kart around my father's dealership when I was 6 and karting competitively when I was 10.
Okay.
Right.
When I was footy and I played ice hockey in the NFL Superstars and Hall of... When I was footy and I played ice hockey with future NFL superstar and Hall of Famer Paul Kariya? Don't know. Kariya.
No, I don't know that one.
No.
How are we spelling that again? Sorry.
Is it
K-
NFL or NHL?
NHL. Kariya.
Right, there is a difference between the NFL and the NHL. One, you're allowed to use sticks.
Right,
One,
okay.
it would be more interesting that they were playing hockey together.
That would be a good mix sport, though, if you smash the two of those together.
Yeah,
Hockey/football/karting.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to
You
say...
could do it either way as well. You could either just play football on
Isn't
ice,
that polo?
or just let them use them as weapons.
You ever seen any of the Gaelic sports like hurling?
Yeah, actually, like that's hurling's ridiculous. Isn't there a more violent version as well called shinty?
That's the Scottish one, so yeah, it's probably harder.
Yeah. I'd like a guess, please.
I'll bet you
Right. 45-year-old hockey. What do we think? This name sounds kind of not sort of European.
would. I'm just trying to think of... I mean, obviously, if they played hockey...
The Canadian is the obvious
yeah.
go-to, isn't it?
Any 45-year-old Canadians?
We've had Villeneuve too often.
It won't be Jacques because he's in his 50s now, isn't
Is
he?
he older?
I think Jacques older than me. Right, possibly. I don't. Can't think how old Paul Tracy is, but I think he's old. He's older than that. He certainly looks it. Or he had one hell of a paper round.
These are
Also-
long clues.
Canadian winter. So who should we guess? Paul Tracy to start with.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, I can't think of any other suitably aged Canucks.
In 1993, I wanted to join Formula Atlantic, but was denied for being too young. I was eventually granted a license, but was only able to enter and exit my car in the paddock. I raced 12 rounds that season, finishing in the top 10 7 times.
I mean, Jacques was in Formula Atlantic, but I'm sure he's older than 45.
I moved up to Indy Lights in 1994 and became the youngest pole winner. And I won a race that year.
Okay, so we are definitely looking at somebody who's made the name more in, I'd probably say Indy,
America. Yeah.
than in F1.
Yeah.
I joined Forsyth Racing Indy Lights team in 1995 and went on to win 10 of the 12 races, including the first 5 rounds in a row.
It sounds like Jacques Villeneuve.
What was that, in 1995?
Yeah, 1995.
But wasn't Jacques Villeneuve in full-blown Indy in 95?
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah.
I'd like a guess, please.
Okay, struggling here. We need to throw out the name of a decent sounding indie driver that got big in the 90s.
Late 90s.
Late 90s, around about the time it wasn't on British TV.
What's Gilda Ferran? What nationality is he?
Brazilian?
Ah,
Yeah.
probably not an ice hockey player then. In his youth.
Unlikely.
Unlikely, but I can't think of anything better at the minute. Brian Herter.
I'll say yes because I don't know who that is.
Colton Herter's dad?
So Colton Herter is sort of 20-ish, isn't he? So yeah, Brian Herter would presumably be in his mid-40s.
Yeah.
Why
Okay.
not?
Yeah, okay. We'll go Brian Herter.
I moved up to the Forsyth Racing Team in 1996 when Jacques Villeneuve left for F1. I took 3 podiums that season, placing 9th in the driver's standings and 2nd to Alex Zanardi in the Rookie of the Year standings.
Remember earlier on when I was saying I don't watch a lot of IndyCar?
Yeah.
I didn't watch a lot of IndyCar in the 90s, so...
I'm carrying this and I watched about as much as you did.
The only thing I know about IndyCar in the 90s was I had a Nigel Mansell scale electric.
He did the advert for was it came out on Texaco where he was saying I nearly forgot the bread. Does anyone remember that advert? It's ridiculous.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to try and find it and post it on our chat thread.
Oh, that might have to go up on Twitter. Right, yeah. Next, I'm really hoping there's a spaffer.
There isn't. Oh yes, there is. Next season, I won my first race on the Milwaukee Mile, becoming the youngest ever IndyCar winner at the time. I won my second race 1 week later on the streets of Detroit with Mark Blundell and Maurizio Gilderman.
Maurizio Gugelman.
Yeah, no, doesn't help when you don't know IndyCar.
Well, Maurizio Gugelman raced in F1.
Yeah.
When was that?
90s.
Was it?
Early 90s. It
Clearly made a lasting impression.
LaRousse.
I was going to say LaRousse and possibly Footwork.
Lotus, maybe.
I think I was. I don't think I started watching Formula One in like 1994, end of 94, beginning of 95. So I don't know. Maybe I missed him.
With his name having a lot of syllables in, you tend to remember it because Murray got excited when he got lapped. You've got to say it properly with the proper upward Murray inflection. Gugelman?
Yeah.
I've still got nothing other than Brian Herter at the minute because that's the only name I can pull out that was racing round about those times, and we've already had Harry Lyondike.
In 1997, I was linked to the Williams Formula One team as a test driver. That same year, I was asked by the CBC to guest commentate on the Canadian Grand Prix, but was told by the FIA I couldn't because I was an IndyCar driver.
Okay, so it's definitely somebody Canadian, so I think we can rule Brian Herter out.
Brian Herter is not Canadian.
Yeah.
I like the idea that the FIA said no because you're a dirty IndyCar driver.
There used to be some major grief between IndyCar and the FIA because IndyCar wouldn't sign up, and every other open wheel series in the world did.
Wow.
I can't.
No.
I'm out.
No.
I feel like the more information I get, the less chance I have of accidentally throwing out the right answer.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm sticking with my guess that it's a Canadian IndyCar driver.
In
I
May
said that first thing.
2013, I was named one of Autosport magazine's 50 greatest drivers never to race in Formula One. It's funny how there's never a 50 greatest drivers never to race an IndyCar list, isn't there? Never works the other way around.
Yeah, but back then Autosport was British owned. Now that Autosport's American owned, there might be. Yeah, still got not a great deal.
Spaffer.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Tragically, my racing career and life ended on October the 31st, 1999, at the Fontana Superspeedway. Far too young and with much more to accomplish.
Oh God. Oh hell. I've got a feeling I know, and I've got I'm dreading giving the answer because of what it will do. But I'm going to throw it out there.
Okay.
Dick Trickle.
Christ.
I've never heard of that man.
I know he died around about then. I can't remember if he was
Imagine
Canadian
how
or not.
few T-shirts he sold.
Imagine being called Richard and your surname being Trickle, and of all the abbreviations you can have for Richard, you pick Dick.
Rich Trickle.
Yeah,
No.
Rick, Ricky,
Trickle. No.
Richie.
Ricky Trickle. No. Yep.
Dick.
Imagine
Yeah,
being
absolute.
turned around. So, all right, mate, what's your name? Richard. All right, what's your surname? My name's Richard.
That's the only thing vaguely close I've got. Are we going with that one?
I have no further offers.
I have nothing to offer.
Are you Dick
No.
Trickle?
No, I'm not. I am number 99 and complete stranger to Lee, Greg Moore.
Oh hell yes, I have heard of him.
No, I haven't.
No. Sorry, Mr. Moore.
Yes. Oh God.
Thank you, Mr. Geiger.
Yes, thank you for that. How do you send in a shunt?
Apparently, and I've seen this before in IndyCar. Greg number 99 was retired. Many drivers still wear red gloves in IndyCar, which is a tribute to him, including James Hinchcliffe.
Oh right.
Hinch would make sense because he is the Canadian.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yep,
I have
if
heard
you-
of him, but yeah. Instructions. Sorry.
If you want to send a Total Shunt to me, you can tweet me at a Total Shunt in a private message on Twitter. You can send me a private message on Instagram with one. And yeah, just do that because it's easier.
That is cool. And if you want to get in touch with the rest of us, we're on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, all at 3 Legs 4 Wheels. Email 3legs4wheels@gmail.com, and on Twitter we are individually
At Sean Cowper.
At Flood21.
and at Pablo100. There's also another show that you can get that we do nearly every week, because we didn't do one last week, so I'm going to post it up any minute now, by subscribing to our Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/3legs4wheels, you can sign up from as little as $1 or euro or sterling equivalent a month, and that will get you live streams when we do them. We've not been able to tonight for technical reasons, and the extra non-Formula 1 show with all kinds of tangents in. I can't remember what's on this week's show because we recorded it a week ago. If you're into iRacing, then we have a race just about every Sunday night, 8 o'clock UK time. We've got a league. Drop us a line, I can give you the details for that. But this Saturday, it's we're doing a special one instead, and it's the Indy 250. So if you're on iRacing, join in. And as well, drop us a line if you want to take part in F1 leagues on the PC, PlayStation and Xbox. We're trying to get those going, so we need the numbers. So let me know if you're interested, and I'll pass your details on to the guys that are running the leagues for us. I think that's got all the adverts in.
Sounds like it.
And new F1 patch out soon, so Formula Lee hopefully will be back next week.
Let's hope so.
As will we with a preview of the Belgian Grand Prix and anything that happens in the meantime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Sounds about right.
We will see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.